Alright folks, let's get straight into it, because there's no sugarcoating what we witnessed on Sunday. That was a grim, lifeless derby at Ibrox. Rangers 0, Celtic 0, and honestly, the scoreline flatters the occasion because this match was nothing short of dreadful. The biggest fixture in Scottish football, arguably the most emotionally charged game in the entire calendar, and we got 90 minutes of football that felt more like an obligation than a battle. Let's be honest. If you didn't have a team in this fight, you'd have turned it off by halftime and gone to mow the lawn. Now, Celtic fans went into this game with hope, not because the performances have been convincing lately, far from it, but because Rangers have been in a rough patch too. You look at them and think, there's a team ripe for the taking. And yet, the big opportunity just slipped right through our fingers. Again, that's now what? 4, maybe 5 games at Ibrox without a win. It's starting to become a theme, and not in a good way. From the first whistle, it felt like both teams were dragging themselves through the motions. Confidence, nowhere to be found. Intensity, missing in action. Game plan, hard to identify. And for Celtic, it's becoming a worrying pattern. This isn't just about Sunday. This is about a string of performances that all carry the same flat, uninspired energy. The Kilmarnock tie, the earlier league matches, it's like we've got a squad stuck in quicksand, trying to play Celtic football with no rhythm, no spark, and frankly no bite. Brendan Rodgers came out after the game and said, "That's not how Celtic play." But come on, Brendan, we've been watching this team week in, week out. That is how Celtic play right now. A lot of sideways passing, hesitant build-up, very little urgency, and absolutely zero fear factor. Opponents aren't scared of Celtic anymore. They're not overwhelmed by the press. They're not pinned back by relentless attacking. Instead, they're watching us huff and puff around the back line and thinking, we can live with this. And they're right. Let's talk about the team selection. Some surprising choices, not all of them logical. Casper in goals. Back four of Ralston, Carter Vickers, Scales and Tierney. Midfield, Callum McGregor, Rio Hatate, and Ari Engels. Up front we had Benji Negrin, who, let's be honest, should never be out on the wing. Mikael Analisha making his debut on the left, and Daisen Maeda through the middle. Just reading that out loud, it already sounds like we're trying to piece together a lineup with duct tape and hope. The midfield was absolutely dire. McGregor looked a shadow of himself. Hatate was miles off the pace again. And Engels, look, we all want the kid to succeed, but that was a golden opportunity for him in a massive game, and he did nothing with it. It wasn't just that he was quiet. It was that he looked overwhelmed, lost, and almost invisible for long stretches. There was no structure, no creativity, no dynamism. The midfield is supposed to be the engine room, but ours is stalling out on the motorway with no help in sight. Benji Negrin on the right wing? That experiment needs to stop. Not just pause, stop. He's not quick enough. He's not a natural wide player, and it showed in every moment he touched the ball. We've seen flashes of quality from him when he's played centrally, but shoehorning him into a position that clearly doesn't suit him is not only unfair to him, it's hurting the team. The fact he's being used there tells us everything we need to know about Brendan Rodgers' faith, or lack thereof, in the other attacking options at his disposal. And speaking of hurting the team, Kieran Tierney. Now, don't get me wrong, we all love KT, but he's not right. Physically, maybe he's fine, but mentally, he looks like a guy afraid to go full throttle. There was a moment in that game where the Rangers wingers squared up to him, and you could see it in Tierney's body language, hesitation. He didn't back himself to sprint. And if you've watched Tierney over the years, you know that full-blooded running, fearless defending, and aggressive overlaps are his bread and butter. That moment told the whole story. He's holding back. Whether it's fear of another injury or just rust from his stop-start seasons, it's clear. This isn't the Tierney we remember. And Celtic need more than 70% of KT to push through a season like this. Let's find a couple of positives, and I mean really dig deep. 1. We kept a clean sheet. That's 6 clean sheets in 7 games. And say what you will about our style or our midfield, that defensive record is solid. Carter Vickers, Scales, even Ralston did their jobs well enough. Scales in particular continues to quietly go about his business, and on a day where everything else fell flat, he might have been the most reliable man on the pitch. Second positive, we finally saw Balawisha make his debut. Thrown into the chaos of a derby where the team's not clicking and the atmosphere is toxic, it's not easy for any young player. But he wasn't terrible. He had a few moments, tried to get involved, showed he's got something in the locker. But again, it's hard to judge a winger when your team isn't creating space or feeding the ball into dangerous areas. He didn't set the world on fire, but he got a taste of it, and hopefully that'll lead to more confidence and minutes in the coming weeks. Now, let's be real. That's about where the positives end. The midfield is a massive problem. Going into this season, we all thought that was the one area we didn't have to worry about. We thought we had 2 full starting midfields to rotate. And what do we have now? Nothing. That engine room is producing 0. There's no link between defense and attack, no drive from deep, no one willing to break lines with a run or a pass. Liam Scales has taken some stick in the past for holding onto the ball too long, but what is he supposed to do when McGregor, Hatate and Engels are all standing still, occupying the same 5-yard radius? There's just no movement, no one making runs, no one showing for the ball. When the midfield is static, you force defenders to either hoof it forward or go backwards, which is exactly what we saw. And when we did manage to get the ball into the midfield, they weren't looking forward either. They were more concerned with not losing the ball than with creating anything. That's the most frustrating thing, the fear. You can see it in the players. They're scared to make mistakes, scared to take risks. That's not the Celtic way. And it's on Brendan Rodgers now. He's got 2 weeks over the international break to get this sorted. Not everyone will be available. Sure, some are off on duty, but there'll be a core group at Lennoxtown that he can work with. Some of the new signings need to bed in properly, and maybe there are still 1 or 2 fresh faces to come in. But we can't just limp through this season hoping for things to magically turn around. We need identity, we need style, and we need belief. The new signings, let's be blunt, have not delivered yet. Negrin, we touched on. Has he shown glimpses? Yes. Has he grabbed a game by the scruff of the neck? Absolutely not. Analisha, we need more time to judge. Balawisha showed flashes, but needs rhythm. And the guys we've been leaning on for years, Maeda, Hatate, even Carter Vickers, they're not firing on all cylinders either. There's fatigue. Not just physical, but emotional. You can see it. And maybe, just maybe, that core group we've relied on for the last 3 or 4 years is finally burning out. And that's the big point here. Celtic looks stale. Stale in the dugout, stale in the dressing room, stale in their approach. And unless something gives, unless Brendan Rodgers is willing to rip up his comfort zone and start fresh, with new ideas, maybe even with younger players like Dane Murray or Colby Donovan, then we're just going to keep seeing more of the same. Slow, passive, uninspiring football. Now, let's shift into what everyone's been buzzing about since the final whistle, the transfer window. It's deadline day chaos. The kind of day where everyone pretends they're an expert in League One and starts refreshing Twitter every 2 minutes for updates. But for Celtic fans, this deadline day didn't bring much of the usual excitement. Instead, it felt like a last-minute scramble to patch over a summer of missed opportunities, half-baked negotiations, and frankly, poor planning. Look, we all knew this rebuild was overdue. We've been talking about freshening up the squad since May. Everyone saw it. Everyone felt it. You could see the cracks forming at the tail end of last season. And yet, we've gone through most of the summer looking like we're shopping with a voucher we found in the back of a drawer. There's no ambition, no killer instinct in the market. Other clubs move quick. They see a need, they fill it. We wait. We haggle. We lowball. And then we wonder why players don't want to come or deals fall through. Kasper Dolberg, that's the big one. That's the name we've heard all week. A striker with pedigree, experience in Europe, physical presence. The kind of guy who, if you get it right, could be transformational. We've put in 2 bids already. Both rejected. Now we're supposedly going in with a third. And at this point, everyone's asking the same question. Why are we dragging this out? We've got the money. We're about to bank around $7 million for Adam Ida's sale to Swansea. We've had Champions League money for years. This is not a broke football club. So why are we acting like one? Dolberg's deal simply has to happen. If it doesn't, it's a massive failure. Because not only have we failed to replace the goals of previous seasons, but we've also put ourselves in a position where Maeda is being played out of position and the alternatives are either unfit, untested, or uninspiring. The other name linked, Jezran Raksaki from Crystal Palace. Talented, pacey, promising, sure. But let's be honest, It reeks of desperation. A lone move, on deadline day, fighting with Rangers and Leicester for his signature. That's not strategy, that's scrambling. That's panic shopping. And let's talk about outgoings. Adamida leaving for Swansea, fine. He had some good moments in the hoops, but no one really thought he was the long-term solution. What's more telling is the complete lack of faith in the existing attacking options. Young, who was hyped when he came in, off to Birmingham. Paulo Bernardo, where is he? The guy's been invisible. Rodgers said he'll get his chance after the break. But what kind of plan is that? You sign a player in August and wait 3 weeks to integrate him? You're telling me he's not fit enough to even make the bench? It doesn't add up. The squad is thin. Let's just say it. It's thin. Not in terms of numbers. We've got bodies. But in terms of quality. And there's a difference. Anyone can fill a squad with players. But Celtic are meant to be winning leagues, competing in Europe, setting the standard. Right now, we don't look like we're built to do any of that. The new signings? Underwhelming, if we're being generous. Nothing game-changing. No wow moments. Just names on a sheet. And when that happens, when the new signings don't light the place up, what do? We go back to the old guard. The players who've been doing it for 3, 4, sometimes 5 seasons. The likes of Callum McGregor, Hatate, Maeda, Carter Vickers, Greg Taylor, even Joe Hart before he left. And here's the brutal truth. They look burned out. Not bad players. Not disloyal. Just done. You can only go to the same well so many times before it runs dry. And I think it's dry now. Maeda, for example. Hardworking, committed, relentless. But the goals have dried up. The sharpness isn't quite there. He was slightly better in the first half against Rangers than he's been in previous games, but we're grading on a curve here. He's nowhere near the level we saw in his early days. Hatate looks disinterested at times. McGregor? Clearly weighed down by trying to carry the entire midfield on his back. That brings us to the real root of the issue. There's no cohesion in this squad. The parts aren't clicking. The midfield isn't linking with the forwards. The backline is constantly being forced to reset because there's no forward pass available. And when we do manage to get into the final third, there's no presence, no killer instinct, no one taking responsibility. And that's why Sunday's performance felt so damning. Not just because it was boring, not just because it was a missed opportunity, but because it felt like the natural conclusion to a summer where the club failed to evolve. This team has hit a wall. We can talk about tactics, we can talk about form, we can talk about Rodgers and his philosophy. But sometimes football is simpler than that. Sometimes a team just runs out of steam. This one has. Now the question is, what next? What's the plan here? Because if we're just stumbling our way through this season hoping to scrape by, that's a dangerous game. Yes, we might still win the league, but only because the standard has dropped across the board. Rangers aren't world beaters either. But Europe? Forget it. Champions League? We'll get battered playing like this. Even Europa League. If you put in a performance like that against even a mid-table Spanish or German side, you're getting torn apart. And Brendan Rodgers, he's got a lot of work to do. A lot. Because what we're seeing right now isn't good enough. The tactics are flat. The selections are repetitive. The substitutions come too late. And it feels like he's lost a bit of that edge, the sharpness, the adaptability. He's always been a coach who sticks to his guns, sometimes to a fault. But right now, we need someone willing to shake things up. Get inventive. Take risks. Bring in young blood if the veterans aren't delivering. Give Dane Murray a shot. Give Colby Donovan some minutes. Use the international break to hit the reset button properly. And the board? They need to wake up. The days of scraping together titles while cutting corners are numbered. The fans aren't stupid. They can see what's going on. They know the difference between ambition and lip service. They want more than a team that's just good enough. They want a team to believe in again. A team with energy, identity, and direction. This can't be another wasted season. This can't be another year of treading water while the club counts the gate receipts. And Brendan Rodgers, for all his experience and all his silverware, has to realize that if he wants to repair his legacy at Celtic, and that's why he came back, let's not kid ourselves, then he has to show more than this. Winning the league by default while getting embarrassed in Europe won't do it. Not this time. If Dolberg signs and turns out to be a gem, maybe that gives us a boost. If a few more names come through the door and actually play, maybe things shift. But we need to see that shift on the pitch. In the tempo, in the aggression, in the mentality. We need to see a team that actually looks like it wants to win. Because at the moment, it looks like we've got a group of players hoping to survive each game rather than take control of it. And maybe the saddest part of all this is that the league table is fine. We're not bottom, we're not miles off the pace. And yet it feels bleak. Because performances like Sunday's just suck the life out of you. You start to wonder what we're even building towards. What's the endgame here? Another limp title win and an early European exit? That's not the Celtic fans grew up with. That's not the standard we hold the club to. And that's why this deadline day, for all its usual chaos, felt more like a rescue mission than a reinforcement exercise. There's still time, sure. But the clock's ticking, and not just on the transfer window. It's ticking on this squad, on this season, and maybe even on Brendan Rodgers' second spell in the dugout. If something doesn't change soon, this isn't going to be a title race. It's going to be a slow, painful trudge to the end of the season. And right now, it doesn't matter who we sign if we don't fix what's broken internally. The mindset, the cohesion, the spark. That's the real work. The kind of work that doesn't show up in Sky Sports graphics or headline-grabbing deals. It shows up in performances, in pressing high, in moving the ball quickly, in playing with purpose. Because right now, this Celtic team isn't playing with purpose. It's playing with fear. And that's the biggest problem of all. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. An explosion of noise and speculation erupted across Scotland this morning, when word began to spread that Andrew Robertson, the captain of the Scottish national team and longtime Liverpool left-back, has put pen to paper on a sensational deal with Celtic. The chatter began in whispers through supporter groups, first dismissed as little more than the typical end-of-window hysteria, but quickly the volume increased as unnamed sources close to Parkhead spoke of boardroom celebrations deep into the night. The suggestion is that Robertson, born and raised in Glasgow, has decided at the peak of his career to return home and don the green and white hoops, a move that has supporters buzzing and rivals both north and south of the border stunned in disbelief. Few had predicted such a shift, for his career seemed destined to remain rooted at Anfield. Yet those who know him best argue the pull of Glasgow and the chance to anchor Celtic's European ambitions proved impossible to resist. On talk-in shows, presenters could scarcely hide their excitement, comparing this shock twist to legendary transfers of bygone eras, insisting that if the rumors bear fruit, Robertson would become the most high-profile Scot to grace the domestic league in decades. Even as the story spirals, there are countless doubts and questions swirling around the veracity of the claim, with some pundits maintaining that until a shirt is held aloft at Celtic Park, it remains a tantalizing rumor rather than concrete fact. Supporters gathered outside Lennoxtown Training Center, desperate for a glimpse, smartphones held aloft in hopes of catching Robertson stepping out of a tinted car, while bookmakers across the nation rapidly slashed their odds on his return becoming official. The noise on social media was deafening, fans posting doctored images of Robertson already wearing Celtic colors, and journalists in Glasgow insisting they had seen reliable paperwork exchanged in quiet offices late last night. What adds intrigue is the apparent silence from Liverpool, who have issued neither denial nor confirmation, an unusual posture for a club known to quickly extinguish baseless speculation. Some believe the timing is linked to long-standing injury concerns at Anfield and the emergence of youthful fullbacks capable of stepping into his shoes, creating a window for Celtic to swoop. Others argue it is Robertson's own yearning for family ties, with Glasgow never far from his heart, the streets where he first kicked a ball calling him home after years abroad. While nothing is yet sealed in public, the whispers have already begun to transform into vivid scenarios of how Robertson might change the landscape of Scottish football. Celtic supporters, notorious for their passion and imagination, are already discussing tactical shifts, envisioning him driving forward on the left flank, delivering pinpoint crosses to Kyogo Furuhashi and Maeda, restoring memories of European nights when Parkhead roared like no other stadium. Former players have weighed in on radio debates, recalling how rarely a world-class Scot has returned at the peak of his powers, suggesting this could inspire a renaissance across the league. The chatter is relentless. Some argue that Robertson's leadership qualities could elevate the dressing room, creating standards seldom seen in recent domestic campaigns. Detractors counter that such expectations might prove too heavy a burden, yet even they cannot deny the electricity the rumor has injected into every corner of the footballing conversation. It is not merely Celtic fans who are talking. Across Edinburgh and Aberdeen, rival supporters admit curiosity, for the arrival of such a figure would inevitably raise the profile of the entire Premiership. The prospect has television executives and sponsors calculating viewership spikes, a sign of just how seismic the suggestion truly feels. Cynics, however, remind anyone listening that football is rife with smoke screens and elaborate negotiations, and what appears imminent can dissolve into disappointment within hours. There are reminders of previous sagas where adored players were linked with emotional homecomings, only for the dream to falter on wage demands or contractual clauses buried deep within fine print. Yet in Robertson's case, the rumor is fueled by his deep-rooted connection to Celtic, a boyhood affection never hidden, and photographs of him as a young supporter proudly wearing the hoops circulate anew, feeding the frenzy. It is said that his family circle remains firmly tied to Glasgow's south side, and that the opportunity to be closer to them has weighed heavily on his decisions. Beyond sentiment, Celtic's board are whispered to have prepared a financial package unprecedented in club history, an offer that blends heroes' welcome with competitive security, all in hope of sealing his signature before rivals can intervene. Critics insist that until figures are revealed, the numbers may simply not add up, yet those in the know argue that merchandising, ticket demand, and global profile could more than cover the investment. And so the speculation persists, gaining momentum with every passing hour. By the evening, cafes and pubs across Scotland had become hotbeds of conversation, with patrons dissecting every angle of the supposed deal, raising glasses to the notion that the nation's captain might soon be leading Celtic into battle under the floodlights of paradise. For many, it feels like a dream long whispered, now materializing into tantalizing possibility, the kind of move that transcends ordinary transfer chatter and veers into folklore. Supporters imagine unveiling nights, Robertson stepping out to the chorus of You'll Never Walk Alone, blending with Celtic's own chants, a symbolic uniting of journeys across borders. Journalists meanwhile sharpen their pens, preparing headlines that could define a sporting era, knowing that if the rumor hardens into reality, it would be splashed on front pages far beyond Scotland. There is anticipation, disbelief, and unrestrained hope woven into every retelling of the story, as though the country itself is holding its breath. Whether fact or fiction, whether fleeting fantasy or groundbreaking reality, one certainty endures. The rumor of Andrew Robertson to Celtic has ignited Scottish football like few events before it, leaving everyone to wonder whether tomorrow will bring confirmation or crushing silence. Until then, the streets of Glasgow buzz with expectancy. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.